Welcome! Today we're going over all of the songs by the 1975 that maybe or definitely are about Taylor Swift. To summarize, her and Matty Healy, the frontman of the 1975, had a brief fling in 2014 that was then reinitiated in 2023, ended very poorly, and resulted in an album where 20 plus of Taylor's songs detailed their decade-long relationship of fantasizing about each other, to the surprise of many of her fans. For anyone that still doubts how much Taylor lived in Matty's head rent-free for all these years, here's a compilation of all the times he's randomly brought her up in interviews over the years.
I met Taylor Swift, and that was really nice.
I think Taylor's amazing. And Taylor, I want to produce your next album. I've always wanted to do.
She's a big fan.
But then you also gave it to Taylor Swift early. She got an early listen.
She heard bits of it through Jack. Yeah.
She was just stood behind me. She was talking to BBD. I mean, I haven't seen Taylor in years, so it was actually a really nice room.
Tumblr, Dr. Martens, Taylor Swift, the 1975.
Now that that's settled, let's get into the songs he has written about her. First up, About You from Being Funny in a Foreign Language, which was released in 2022. This is the song where during singing it, Matty says, Taylor then repeats this message at one of her own shows, confirming that this gesture is towards her. The entire song is also about missing a past relationship. He keeps repeating, "Do you think I have forgotten about you?" which is something Taylor also mentions in almost all of her songs about Matty. If you look closer at the lyrics of About You, there's also a theme of sort of promising to come back to a past relationship when Matty says, maybe the timing didn't work out, but they wanted to meet in the future. Coincidentally, this is a theme that is also present very clearly in Taylor's song Peter from the Tortured Poets Department, where she says, "He said it was just goodbye. He said you were gonna grow up and you were gonna come find me." Given the other lyrics in the song Peter, this song is definitely about Matty, but that's for another video. Let's just leave that be for now. But this isn't the only song About You has parallels to. He also says, "We get married in our heads," and in Fresh Out the Slammer, which is very clearly about Taylor leaving Joe and moving on to Matty, Taylor says, "Here at the park where we used to sit on children's swings, wearing imaginary rings." From these two songs, we can definitely tell that the vibe between them was that something didn't work out, but they really wanted to make it work in the future. Now, something not entirely necessary to the narrative, but still fun to note, is that About You, like a lot of the 1975's other songs, has some train imagery. Now, of course, Taylor happened to release a song called I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can on the Tortured Poets Department, which is clearly about Matty's bad habits. And of course, this song has the line, "The smoke cloud billows out his mouth like a freight train through a small town." This is, I think, a very subtle nod to Matty's lyrics, and the reason that I bring this up is alone, it might not be that much of a standout moment. You know, she referenced trains once, what is there to it? But she keeps doing this throughout a lot of her songwriting, and the amount of these little parallels are just so hard to ignore, and you'll see what I mean as we get further into the video. And this may be a reach, but another example of this within About You is Taylor's lyrics in Question, where she says, "I remember" as the beginning line, which can be interpreted as answering the lyric, "Do you think I have forgotten?" in About You. Question itself has a lot of lyrical references to Matty, such as "but you were on something," meaning he was on drugs, and politics and gender roles, which I discussed in a prior video, but basically relates to their situation back in 2014, where there were indeed politics and gender roles involved. You guys have to stop coming for me thinking Question is about Matty. On the note Taylor wrote for the release of Midnights, it literally says, "Maybe it's that urgent question you meant to ask someone years ago but didn't. Someone that slipped through the cracks in your history and they're too far gone now anyway," which is literally perfectly matches her and Matty's relationship. So if she wanted to ask anybody a question, it was him. Anyway, point being, Taylor likes to reference Matty's songs a lot, and let's keep this in mind as we dive further in to see which songs of his might be about her, because odds are she's sampling some that are about her. Next up, we have When We Are Together, also from Funny in a Foreign Language. Now, Matty has said that this song references multiple people in an interview, and after looking through it, to me, these people seem to be FKA Twigs, who Matty dated for 3 years and broke up just 6 months before this album was released. And the other person seems to be Taylor, which proves just how much she was on his mind. Let's prove this by analyzing some of the oddly specific lyrics of this very short song. So let's start with the lyric, "I'm better at writing was just a way to get you biting." This is very telling because this is clearly about a songwriter. Both Matty and Taylor are songwriters, and Taylor also references this in her track The Tortured Poets Department, where she compares both her and Matty to poets. She says, "You're not Dylan Thomas, I'm not Patti Smith." Taylor Swift notoriously takes pride in her songwriting, and it's an integral part of who she is, so this being a reference to her makes sense. But let's for a minute look at the other people Matty has dated, because he's also dated two other songwriters in the past, one of which is FKA Twigs, and the other one is Halsey, who Matty dated way back in 2015, 7 years before the release of this song. So the odds that he was dreaming about both her and Taylor, it doesn't make sense. I think their relationship was over a while ago. So literally the only other person this could reference is FKA Twigs, who is both a producer and songwriter. However, when asked if this specific lyric was about her, he literally answered, "I don't want to be obtuse, but that's not specifically about her." This record in particular spans a lot of relationships, which is just to me saying that that lyric specifically was about Taylor. If he wrote it about FKA, he would have said it was about FKA. Now, why do I think this song is about her at all? Well, the only lyric that kind of seems to point towards her is when Matty says, "Our first kiss was Christmas in the Walmart toy department." His first outing with FKA Twigs was on January 18th of 2020, so it's pretty likely that they could have met in December and kind of shared a first kiss then. However, his and Taylor's romance seemed to start in November and end kind of December 6th of 2014, which doesn't at all include Christmas. And considering Matty himself said this is about multiple relationships, it does make sense that some of the lyrics in the song directly match up with Taylor and some of them don't whatsoever. But moving on to all of the lyrics that literally point at nobody but Taylor, we have the lyric, "I like socks with sandals, she's more into scented candles." Does FKA Twigs look like she's into scented candles? I mean, like maybe. I think that's more of a Taylor thing. But moving on to an actually specific lyric, he says, "And it was poorly handled the day we both got canceled because I'm a racist and you're some kind of a slag." First off, I looked up FKA Twigs controversy and not a single news article came up. I'm talking like not even Reddit, like one Reddit post came up. This woman is the most unproblematic pop star I've ever seen. Secondly, Taylor, on the other hand, had a lot of controversy about her dating life back in 2014 and still does to this day, but especially back in 2014 with a popular trope being news outlets labeling her as a slut that goes through men, which is the equivalent of a slag. There was also a whole thing, like I mentioned earlier, about their reputations being incompatible, with Taylor being afraid of losing her good girl image because of Matty's reputation, and Matty being afraid of the press surrounding Taylor as well, and that's what I meant earlier by kind of politics and gender roles. The theme of publicity and press is mentioned a lot in Taylor's songwriting about Matty. It makes sense that Matty would also bring this up in his songs because they're two giant pop stars dating. Of course, there would be a huge amount of publicity attention on that. But to kind of close this off, this really leaves no doubt that this lyric is not about FKA, who never had the tabloids calling her a slag, and confirming Matty's statement that the song is about multiple people once again. Finally, in Fortnite, Taylor says, "And for a fortnight there we were forever, run into you sometimes, comment on my sweater, and also run into you sometimes, ask about the weather." Now, remember those tiny lyrical parallels that Taylor kept doing that I was talking about earlier? This is another one. In When We Are Together, Matty says, "You ask about the cows wearing my sweater, it's something about the weather that makes them lie down," which indicates that Taylor definitely took inspiration from the song, so we can kind of take this as evidence that some of the lyrics in the song are definitely about her. If we look back on Fortnite as a song in general, and the lyric "and for a fortnight there we were together," the song's about being with someone for a brief period of time and them kind of appearing in your life afterward, but only as a friend. This is literally exactly what happened with her and Matty in 2014. I think they were together quite literally for a fortnight. They were first pictured hanging out together November 19th, a bunch of stuff happened, and then the last time they were pictured was December 4th. After this, they kept running into each other at award shows. They literally lived in the same neighborhood, and just a bunch of music industry related things connected them. Moving on to Oh Caroline, also from Funny in a Foreign Language. You might be put off by the name of this song, however, when asked about it in an interview, Matty said that Caroline was just for cadence reasons, so that the rhyme worked. This is evident in the lyrics where he literally says, "Oh, I've tried to find another name 1,000 times, but the only one that rhymes is Oh Caroline." A lot of fans suspect that the song may be about Taylor. This is because in the song, most of the lyrics are incredibly non-specific, but one in particular stands out. He says, "I want to get it right this time because you're always on my mind." This definitely feeds into the theme of the timing for their relationship not working out and them promising each other to reunite and try again at a later time, just like in the previously mentioned lyric from About You that says, "Hold on and hope that we'll find our way back in the end," and many of Taylor's songs about him, including also not previously mentioned My Boy Only Breaks His Favorite Toys, which has a nearly identical lyric that says there was a litany of reasons why we could have played for keeps this time. The theme of the whole song, Caroline in general, feeds into fantasizing about a past relationship when he says, "'Cause you're always on my mind." The music video for this is also interesting. The premise of Caroline's music video is that Matty, much older, is reflecting on a past romance that he wishes he had followed through with. Much older, I mean, he literally has like makeup on him to make himself look so old. And at the end of the music video, the old him is performing on a stage that says "on their very best tour," implying that he currently is the old him in the video, wishing that his past romance was back, which definitely ties into this whole theme. Now we can finally move on to the next album, Notes on a Conditional Form. Let's start off with Tonight, I Wish I Was Your Boy. Coincidentally, I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can follows the title convention of this song. Taylor doesn't do this anywhere else in her discography, which is just a really fun thing to mention given that we discussed how I Can Fix Him, No Really I Can fits into the other songs. But anyway, the general theme of Tonight I Wish I Was Your Boy seems to be fantasizing about a past romance, especially given the title. The lyrics, "She told me some things just take time, how can you be sure if you don't try?" also feeds into the general theme of timing not working out. Once again, I feel like I've run out of things to say about this. Moving on to Me and You Together song. Now, Matty has done some interesting things before playing the song on stage right around the time that he and Taylor started dating. Most notably, he says, "I was trying to tell you," or "I've been trying to tell you," before playing the song on stage.
I got something real to tell you.
There's also parallels between the music video for Me and You Together song and You Belong With Me. They're both kind of set in high school and have this vibe to them, but let's look at the lyrics. He says, which once again literally describes his long-term situationship with her. He also says, "I think the story needs more pages," yes, which is coincidentally or not a parallel to what Taylor says in her song Death by a Thousand Cuts, which is actually on Lover, where she says, "If the story's over, why am I still writing pages?" The song also has a lot of marriage and child themes. He says, "I had a dream where we had kids, you would cook, I'd do the nappies," once again alluding to their kind of long-term plans with each other. Finally, the song title of Me and You Together song is a bit weird, like song is literally in the title. Some fans were wondering if Together song was meant to stand for the initials TS, but more likely this is a reference to a Starting Line song called Best of Me, where the lyrics say, "Together, me and you." Starting Line is a band that the 1975 references in a lot of their music, but also a band that Taylor references in the Black Dog track when talking about Matty, when someone plays the starting line and you jump up, meaning that they likely bonded over their love of the band when they were together, so the song having a reference to that band is kind of goes full circle. This is so intertwined. Anyway, moving on to the next song, Roadkill. Starting off the discussion of the song with the lyric, "And they're playing your song on the radio station, mugging me off all across the nation." This can really only reference Taylor, since the only singer of the scope he had dated prior to the release of the song is Halsey, and their relationship was closed and done back in 2015, unlike his and Taylor's. What about FKA Twigs, you might ask? Well, he had just started dating her a few months prior to when the song was released, but this song seems to be about a relationship that has already ended, so this one's definitely not about her. He also says, "My whole life waiting for you," this really references the theme of their relationship's timing and him waiting for her. And of course, what would we do without some parallels to Taylor's songwriting in the song? This might be kind of confusing to follow, but just bear with me. The 1975 has another song called Robbers that was released way back before Taylor and Matty's fling in 2014, but in Robbers, Matty says, "And if you never eat, you'll never grow." This lyric is then referenced again in Roadkill, which says, "And if you don't eat, then you'll never grow. I should have learned that quite a while ago," indicating that this lyric is quite important to the 1975. Now, coincidentally, Taylor seems to have taken inspiration from these lyrics in Folklore, which was released a few months after Notes on a Conditional Form, saying, "And if you'll never bleed, you'll never gonna grow," in her song The One. Texas is also referenced in both Roadkill, "Well, I Pissed Myself on the Texas Intersection," aka a highway, and in multiple of Taylor's songs about Matty. The lyric from Roadkill that says, "Oh, well, I touched down and run to my connection," is also similar to "So When I Touch Down" in The Alchemy by Taylor, which was definitely initially written about Matty before the football references were thrown in to mislead people. Think about it for a second. She says, "What if I told you I'm back? The hospital was a drag. Worst sleep that I ever had. I circled you on a map. I haven't come around in so long." How is that about Travis? She didn't circle him on a map. After being in the mental hospital, she circled Matty on a map. Now, Roadkill also happens to be track 10 on this album, and a lot of fans are convinced that Taylor and Matty have been communicating through track 10 on their albums for a while, and I'm not gonna lie, after looking at this, I believe them. If we take a look at Taylor's album that was released just 2 months after Notes on a Conditional Form, track 10 is literally called Illicit Affairs and is about having a secret romantic connection with another person whilst in a relationship. She says, "And that's the thing about illicit affairs and clandestine meetings and stolen stares. They show their truth one single time, but they lie and they lie and they lie a million little times." To prove this song's connection to Matty, it also has lines like, "You showed me colors you know I can't see with anyone else," which is a direct parallel to Question, where she says, "You painted all my nights, a color I have searched for since." Track 10 on Evermore, released another few months after Folklore, is, lo and behold, once again about a forbidden relationship. She says, "My pain fits in the palm of your freezing hand, taking mine, but it's been promised to another." To clarify, Ivy seems to be about her fantasizing about a forbidden romance rather than actually engaging in one, because she says, "Oh, I can't stop you putting roots in my dreamland," which essentially means that she just can't stop dreaming about him. I've expanded a lot more on all the lyrical references about Matty in the song, but the main one is, "I'd live and die for moments that we stole on begged and borrowed time," which once again references an old relationship that didn't work out due to timing. Moving on, track 10 on Being Funny in a Foreign Language is About You, which we've discussed, and finally on Midnights, track 10 is Labyrinth, which seems to be about a rekindling love. She says, "I thought the plane was going down, how'd you turn it right around?" Coincidentally, Taylor and Matty had reunited and worked on a track for Taylor's Midnights before it was released, and just 3 months after the release of Midnights, Taylor showed up to a 1975 show, then a couple months later broke up with Joe, and the rumors started. What a funny coincidence. Now, if we go all the way backwards to Lover, remember when I said Death by a Thousand Cuts, and you were probably like, what's happening there if you were a Taylor fan? Because that song was written ages ago. Now, Lover was released after she had dated Joe for multiple years, and while literally all of the other songs on Lover seem to be about him, this one specifically references a breakup that had already happened, making it physically impossible for it to be about Joe. She says, "You said it was a great love, one for the ages, but if the story's over, why am I still writing pages?" These lyrics, along with others like "I look through the windows of this love, even though we boarded them up, chandeliers still flickering here," references an old relationship that she's fantasizing about. Combined with the lyrical parallel from the Me and You Together song and the fact that it's track 10, this makes for a pretty compelling case. Moving on to I Like It When You Sleep for You Are So Beautiful Yet So Unaware of It. Guess what happens to be track 10 on this album? It's Somebody Else, which is widely suspected by fans to be about Matty, being the most popular suspect after the song About You. The lyrics, "and come on baby, this ain't the last time I'll see your face," imply that he keeps seeing this person around and that their relationship keeps rekindling. The lyrics, "you said you'd find someone to take my place, I just don't believe that you have got it in you, because we're just gonna keep doing it every time," also implies the same theme, as well as the fact that the other person in this relationship didn't really want to leave either, so there were extenuating circumstances getting in the way. Finally, we have the lines, "get someone you love, get someone you need, fuck that, get money, I can't give you my soul because we're never alone." This might be a diss to Taylor for choosing her reputation over him, sort of committing to earning money instead of engaging in a relationship with him, but the main reference in the song is "cause we're never alone," which mirrors the public scrutiny that they faced with their relationship, as well as generally both of their celebrity statuses. This album was also the first one released after their fling in 2014, and so it had to have some Taylor-inspired songs, since, of course, it turns out that their fling was a lot more serious than a lot of people thought. Cue wearing imaginary rings. Now, I'm fully aware that there's some songs I may have missed on this list, but that's because the 1975 songs are notoriously very unspecific, and also it's 4 people writing the songs, not just one, so they're very hard to follow. I'll leave you with some songs that are suspected to be about Taylor, but I just couldn't find anything that really ties them to her. But they are "Be My Mistake" from A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships, and "All I Need to Hear" from Being Funny in a Foreign Language. Once again, these could definitely be about her, there's just nothing quite specific, but let me know down in the comments if you find anything. Thanks so much for watching.